Oh, sorry, you're on mute there, Stephen.
Yeah, so I'll start working through these questions, Sandy. So thanks for joining the conversation today and helping future golfers going into maybe something similar progression route to yourself going forward. So there's three parts of this kind of interview. It's around sort of the planning stage of when you were starting to think about maybe going out to USA and progressing your golf and your studies there as well. And then the transition of that, and then also after that as well, or kind of where you're at now with everything as well, and how it maybe helped you, challenges you faced, and any kind of advice and guidance you could give future athletes considering something similar to what you've done as well. So be as honest as you like. You know, if there's real things that you think will help athletes to think about in the future, that'll definitely be beneficial to them. So so we'll just start with, I mean, how did that come about in the first place? I mean, how old were you when you started thinking about that move, and how did the conversations go with your family and friends and that?
Yeah, I think, I was probably, 15, 16 when I kind of started thinking that college was going to be a really good option for me going to the States. I think there was a number of guys before me that were doing it, and it was becoming very popular, certainly for golf and certainly for guys from Scotland to take advantage of some better facilities, some great competition, some better weather, and also to be able to get your studies along with it. And so, I knew guys like, Bob was going over, and there was a number of guys that had gone before him, and had great experiences. Liam Johnston, as well, and just guys around me that I was competing against, and it was becoming pretty clear that the top players in the world were going through the American college system, and so in my eyes, it was kind of a no-brainer. That's what I was going to do after I finished high school, and so I think I played some tournaments at the national level when I was kind of 16 years old and played well enough to get selected for some Scotland national team events, such as European Amateur. And there's a lot of college coaches that travel to that event in particular. So I was able to see some college coaches there. And throughout that time, there's guys reaching out to you to see if you're interested and stuff. And so that's how kind of my avenue looked like. But if you're not playing in these events where college coaches are there, there's people to help you. I initially was in talks with a sort of college golf agency that can help set you up with colleges and coaches and find the right place for you. I think that there's a place for everybody in the States. I think that as long as you're kind of a scratch handicap or better, there's pretty much going to be a place for you. It may not be Division 1 college golf, but Division 2 junior college, these places are all available for scholarships for you. And also, these places could be just a stepping stone for you. If you were able to improve in your first year or two, you can always almost get promoted or transfer to a different school, a different program, to take advantage of your improved golf. And so multiple avenues, but that's kind of what mine looked like.
Brilliant. Yeah. And you mentioned that. So did you speak to some of them golfers that had been through that kind of experience a little bit already before you moved? Is that kind of what you reached out to them and got some advice similar to the advice you're giving now, which is really important, I think?
Yeah, I think it was really good for me to hear from those guys how it was, and the general consensus was that they loved it and saw huge value in it. And the alternative to me would be just to turn pro, and that just wasn't the smart choice in my mind. Guys have done it, especially from the UK. The likes of Connor Syme, he didn't go to college; he just turned pro. I think Ewan Ferguson did the same. I think that going to America, the value I saw was being away from home, learning to be uncomfortable with that, learning to be uncomfortable in a different environment, different culture, learning how to play golf in a different country with different grasses. Amateur golf in the UK, it's kind of a step up going to college because you've got the best amateurs in the world in college. So it feels like you've been sort of promoted to a different amateur tour, if you like. It's just a fantastic environment to be in, team golf. It's not something that we get to experience very much, because when you're professional, it's kind of, you create your own team, but you're really the sole golfer in that environment. But to be in amongst other golfers, competing against each other, they're the guys that are going to push you every week. If I was to stay in Scotland, I don't think I would have as many players to learn off of, compete against, push you, as I did in America. So I think that was a massive factor in my progress, and I don't think that turning pro, whenever I would have given me the same opportunities and put me in the same position as I am today. So
brilliant. No, some really good advice and insight there, Sandy. Thanks for that. And around, I think you mentioned a little bit around the funding there, but how was that an issue for you? Was that kind of a lot to work out around sort of working out how you're going to finance it and the funding available, and how did that kind of happen for you?
Yeah, I think there is funding available, like grants and stuff, academic scholarships, depending on how well you do in the SAT test. It's like an entry level test for the States, and how good your grades are at high school. And so you can go above and beyond in terms of applying for those kind of things. But on, the base sort of scholarship level for colleges, I didn't accept a 100% scholarship for the school I went to. I had higher offers, but this was the school that really spoke to me, and it was enough scholarship for me to do it. But yeah, the so each team in Division 1 men's team gets about 5 scholarships per team, and generally, you'll have about 10 guys that they have to share that amongst. So if some guy gets a full scholarship, that means that there's less to spread around the rest of the team. And so there's a little bit of strategy from coaches to really sort of manage their scholarships that they get to spread around. From my experience in college, it seems like if you're going to be a 100% scholarship person in men's college golf, you're probably going to be head and shoulders above the rest of your team, which in my mind is maybe not the best thing for your golf, because you kind of want guys to push you. And so I wouldn't be discouraged by a 70-80% scholarship, because that means that you're going to be in amongst players who are competitive. And also you can look at the likes of those grants and scholarships and academic scholarships outside of that base scholarship that you're going to be getting. And I think I was on 66% at Texas Tech. Each school is different, 66% at Texas Tech versus 66% at the likes of like Texas, for example. The yearly costs are extraordinarily different. So that percentage differs from school to school. So you'll need to find out what the yearly costs are to be able to work out how much money you're going to need to spend, or how much money you're going to be left to spend to get through school. And so 66% Texas Tech was affordable for me. It probably wouldn't be affordable at another school, for example. So yeah, just keep an eye on basically the number that you're left with after all said and done. That percentage is taken off of your expenses. But yeah, that's
No, that's great. I'm sure that stuff's really useful, going to be really useful for the future golfers
yeah.
considering this move as well, budgeting. And it's interesting that you said there about not necessarily taking the highest offer you had as well, but doing what was kind of best for you. I think that's kind of important, for your progression as well, and something for the guys to consider as well.
Yeah.
So thanks for that. I'll move down on some of these questions. So the agency stuff, I think you mentioned the agency a little bit there. So you used an agency to find a college, and what was that experience like working with the agency?
Yeah, I started with an agency. Well, did some initial meetings, and in the end, I was lucky enough to play the likes of the European Amateur and be in direct contact with the coaches. And essentially, I didn't need the mediator, as the relationship I sort of been fortunate to be involved with directly with the coaches. Didn't I didn't need their sort of services as much as I would have beforehand, and so I didn't end up signing with the agency, but that was the avenue I was looking at, and I think they're extremely helpful because they have the networking. If you are somebody who is playing national events and is maybe just outside the bubble of national selection, um, I think that you can always reach out yourself um, to these colleges, but the agency has a much wider network and understanding of the system, and I think they can really help you find the right place for you.
Brilliant. Yeah, because that was actually the next part of the question. Did you consider applying to college directly or working out yourself? Obviously, you've explained that, because you had contacts, maybe people who don't have the same contacts as you would be better for an agency probably, or
Yes.
working out from there. So that's good to know.
Yeah.
And in terms of before you headed out to USA, some of the main tasks, were they difficult to sort out? We've got things on the list here like visa, SAT, health insurance, travel insurance, packing, flights. Is there any kind of was that logistically quite difficult, or was there any tips you could give to future athletes around that stuff?
Once you kind of give your commitment to a college, Texas Tech had this online system, like a checklist. You go through the checklist. It can be time consuming, just with the forms and stuff that you have to do, and you have to get together like transcripts. I remember from your high school, and just bits and bobs to just get you ready. But they were really helpful in that process, and I can only speak for Texas Tech, but they want to help you get it sorted because they really want to make sure that you're on the ball with that stuff. So you're not left in the dark with it to do it by yourself. There's people there to help you with that stuff, and so it's just a sort of checklist that they take you through there. I think that yeah, they set you up with housing typically, or I was set up with housing for that first year, where at Texas Tech you were required to stay on campus the first year. And so a lot of it is you're helped through it, and yeah, like packing and stuff. a lot of golf programs will give you a lot of gear when you get there, and so I'd probably pack fairly light going out and sort of assess the scenes when you get out there of what kind of stuff that you get, but yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I think that will put a lot of guys at ease, because imagine that part of it will be quite overwhelming for some people who are young and obviously thinking about doing this as well. So having that support from your university college sounds brilliant, and I'm sure that will guide a lot of the athletes on the right path. So moving on to kind of the transition part of the experience. So how did your thoughts, feelings, emotions change as you got closer to departure? How did you start to doubt whether this is right, or were you fully like, this is definitely what I want to do? Because obviously I imagine a lot of people would be quite nervous about making such a big move at a young age,
Yeah, I think it was definitely a big move. I don't think I probably understood at the time um, the challenges I was going to face, and so I think I was nervous, but mainly excited. I was really looking forward to it, and once you're in that new environment, um, yeah, it just felt kind of funny because I'd never experienced anything like it. Um, there's definitely challenges with being away, and sort of, you go through those in the first year, even 2 years. I would say that um, being uncomfortable in that environment can be tricky, um, but massive life lessons, and was able to learn from all those experiences. And for me, doing that, I think, was a massive help for setting me up to be a professional golfer, um, to be comfortable with traveling, being away from home, taking care of, you know, simple, small stuff, laundry, dishes, um, organizing stuff, um, just being a bit more individual and taking ownership for your stuff. I think all of these were just massive skills that I developed in those first couple of years, and it can definitely be difficult. You'll definitely experience some homesickness, um, and I think it's important to have people around you to steady the ship when there can be some. You'll probably experience some more dramatic highs and lows in that time, and so if you can have people around you to bring you back to base level um, whenever you're going through some turbulence, I think that can really help.
Yeah, that's really, really useful insight again. I mean, it's like you've looked at my notes here, because one of the things was about, how did that help with the development of life skills around cooking, cleaning, washing, budgeting, all that stuff, which you've mentioned, food shopping, even stuff that, at the young age, you're not really used to doing. So all of that's massively important. You've kind of highlighted that as well. Yeah. Really good points around, when you're hitting lows and having the right network. Some of the stuff here was, around sort of your family and friends. And did you manage to, stay in touch with them? And, were these people that you reached out to there who weren't necessarily in the USA?
Yeah, definitely. I think having those people is like an anchor for you, because it's easy to feel lonely. I think I did a poor job, which I've learned from, of kind of feeling like I was going through it by myself. But I needed to understand that there's people in my life to help me go through this kind of stuff with me. Reaching out to family and friends is going to massively help. So staying in contact there. Also, making new friends out at university, and the coaches and the university have systems in place to help you just feel more at home. I would see the sports psychologist every couple of weeks in my last couple of years, just as like a check-in, and I really found that extremely useful, and I wish I did that more in my first couple of years. Um, so I found those really useful, and yeah, just to combat that kind of loneliness, and when you have a lot of time to think, it's easy to think negatively, and so yeah, being social, being um, in contact with your family and friends, massive help.
Yeah, brilliant. Good points there about what you've learned from that experience around not kind of trying not to bottle it up and opening up to people. You mentioned a psychologist, their family, friends, all important that future guys like yourself do that maybe a bit earlier, and don't get kind of lost and don't end up too lonely as well. So thanks for that. I'm going to move on to kind of the settling into college now. Was there anything like that surprised you or didn't meet your expectations, or elements that you enjoyed maybe more than others when you kind of got out there and things? Or
Yeah, I think the workload can kind of seem quite heavy at times because you're essentially doing two jobs.
Yeah.
You've got your college and then you've got your golf side of things, and it's very structured in terms of how you go about your days. And so it can kind of be overwhelming at times. We did 3 gym sessions a week, um, 3 sessions at like 6 in the morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We had classes. I think we take 5 classes typically each semester. Um, and your classes will go from roughly 9 till 12 um, each day. And then, you'll have lunch and you'll have practice, or, you'll play qualifying rounds um, from 1 till 5 typically, or 1 till 5, 2 till 5, something like that. And then, you go home, you get food, you have, a little time to have some downtime, or, most of the time you'll have some homework to do. And so very full days. Um, and I think that's where I learned the the biggest skill of like organizing and planning, weekly, daily, like setting reminders, all these things that I still put into practice today. Um, those are the things that really helped me get through that stuff. But yeah, I think with there being such full days, you want to make sure and give yourself that allowance of downtime, um, and reach out to help again. Like they've got tutors and academic advisors, and a lot of the time you're going to be going through classes with your teammates. So you know, do homework together, reach out to them for help, um, and yeah, I think can be a challenge, but it's it's a great learning adventure for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things here, I mean, would you say that was your biggest challenge in terms of just getting used to juggling or managing that schedule of, trying to train and then also the education side of it as well? Or was there something else that was more difficult to overcome?
Yeah, I think that is the hardest part because well, being away from home, a new environment, like it's super easy to see a drop in performance. I think I did. So new grasses, new golf courses, new style, new level of competition. You're all of a sudden fighting for a spot on the team against guys that are really good at golf. So it can kind of be a bit of a shock, and it's easy to sort of feel like you're not performing up to your level. You're all of a sudden uncomfortable, um, and so I think you know understanding that it's okay to see a drop in performance because there is so much that has changed in your life, um, and it just took a little bit of time for me to learn how to deal with these things. Learn how to play the grass types, learn how to play the golf courses, and play against these better players, and just adapt a little bit. And so it's going to take a little bit of time to adapt. But whilst I was going through some difficulty on the golf course, you still have to go to the gym, you still have to go to practice, you still have the essay that's due on Tuesday, and so it's hard to go through something like that with all these other demands being placed on you. Um, you know, you can't exactly hone in on something because you have other responsibilities, and that's just life. That was a massive life lesson, and so um, really relying on those people around you, those people at home, your coaches, um, your friends, to help you, is going to be massive. And just understanding that it's difficult. Like, you know, I've gone through it. Everybody that I've spoken to has gone through it. Some level of tough tough times on the golf course or in school or just in life in general. Like, um, it happens, and it's totally understandable, especially if you're an international athlete going out to America. There's a whole new level of challenges that you're going to face as opposed to guys that are driving 3 hours to go to their local university. Um, and, you know, I think that the international athletes are the ones that are going to massively benefit from this experience, for future, because they're able to do or deal with these challenges much more so than others. So I certainly see the benefits of it now.
Great, yeah. And I mean, I think you've answered some of this stuff here. It was around sort of how did you manage the physical, mental, social well-being, but you've mentioned that with your family support back home and sports psychologist. And did you know people before you went out there, or did you just manage to make kind of a good friendship base as and when you're out there as well? Did that come easy to you, or was that difficult? Or
Yeah, I think I didn't know anybody out there. I started to, build a relationship with the coach, and there was two other guys from America that were coming into the team at the same time as me, and we ended up being roommates for that whole year. And uh, after that first mandatory year of being on campus, we got an apartment for the following 2 years together. And so, um, we became friends instantly, just through being on the team. And most of the time you're spending a lot of time with the team, and
yeah,
if you can find a couple of friends within the team, um, maybe you'll be rooming with them. It makes it a lot easier. So that's certainly the way that things went
yeah,
for me.
great. I mean, I suppose a lot of people in the same boat as well. Who are going through similar issues and challenges as well. So you're all
Yeah,
in it together a little bit as well, which is refreshing to know. I think. Was
yeah.
there any kind of hidden, more kind of the cost in a little bit here? Was there any kind of hidden cost that's kind of sprung up, or were you kind of well kind of organized with that, and then nothing that really surprised you?
Yeah, I think the one hidden thing I would say, it'll probably be different from contract to contract, or scholarship agreement to scholarship agreement, but the percentage that's written on there, um, or on the scholarship agreement, may only cover a certain amount of what they call hours, which is essentially the amount of classes that you're taking. So um, I could have 4 classes covered um, on my scholarship agreement, but as soon as I took that fifth class, which in order to graduate you have to average 5 classes per semester, um, I would have to pay for that extra class, which was something that I only found out when I got there. So just be aware of how many classes that the scholarship agreement covers. But also, another thing to help with the costs when you get there, with being an international student, is the tax side of things. So go see the tax advisor at your university, and they will help you to get set up your international tax rebate. And I think, on average each year, I would get back about $800, and that that really helps because a lot of guys don't know about that.
Yeah, no, that's great information there around that stuff. I'm sure that's very useful for the guys. I mean, some of the stuff here. I mean, you're back at the moment. Obviously, is that stuff you plan for? Like, how often would you get back? I mean, obviously, that cost wise is expensive flying back to Scotland. And
yeah,
is that stuff you budget for the season just to get a break and things like that, or how do you play it?
Yeah, I think I would try and get back for the winter break, which is a month long, and I would also come back for the summer, and I would play 4 or 5 events in Europe in the summer, and so it would be a round trip, leaving August, coming back December, and then another round trip going out January, coming back sort of end of May. And so 2 round trips out to the States, probably looking at 1,200 a piece. It's a lot of money, but that's the way I did it.
Yeah, good. And moving on now towards more the kind of present, I suppose, or come into that anyway. As you come to the end of your undergraduate course, did you feel like you were prepared for like the next steps within your sport, career, education? Or was that challenging?
I think college golf was the best preparation I could ask for professional golf. The one big change is going from team golf and going from having a ton of support and stuff taken care of for you, to all of a sudden you're the sole engine, you're the driver, and you've got to be much more on the ball. And college golf helped me with planning, scheduling, making a to-do list of items to do. I think your to-do list just gets a little bit bigger, and you have a little bit more responsibility. And so that was probably the biggest change, and it can take a little bit more energy. Again, it's hard to combat the feeling of being a bit more lonely when all of that stops. But again, rely on your team and your surroundings to help you through that. But yeah, I'd say that college golf was the best preparation I could ask for professional golf.
Brilliant. And just a couple more questions to go through. I won't keep you much longer. But just what are your top tips for future golfers looking at exploring the USA as an option? And what would be your top tips? And also then off the back of that, if you were to do your time again, would you have done it the same, or was any changes you'd make?
Yeah, I think with there being a wide range of colleges available at different levels, and depending on the level that you're at, there is definitely a place for everybody. But if you are if you have the opportunity to choose between multiple places, I think that weather is probably going to be an important one to look at. You probably don't want to venture too far north because multiple months of the year in the north part of America can be covered in snow, and you probably don't get the advantages that you'd like coming from Scotland, not being able to play as efficiently in the winter. So kind of on the coasts or in the southern parts of America are probably going to be where you'll see some nicer winters and get some better practice year round. So I would maybe, weight your decision more in those areas. Um, I think that coaches are going to be extremely nice to you, um, and it's really hard to judge their true character. I would try and do some talking with some players or other coaches, and see if you can get a better judge of character and judge of the program through that. It's easy to, it's understandable. Coaches are going to want you to go there, and so it's hard to really understand what they're like on a day-to-day basis. So I think I was really lucky with where I went. I loved it. The coaches were fantastic. I had some great teammates. The program was amazing. It really helped me develop as a player and a person. So I wouldn't change anything in terms of my decision. I'm extremely happy that I chose Texas Tech and went through 6 years of college. And I think it's been a massive part of my life and development to this point. And so I'm really happy with my decision. So
Brilliant. Yeah, really, really good to hear such a positive experience. And just finally then, 3 words. How would you summarize your experience in 3 words?
In 3 words, I would say oh, that's difficult. 3 words.
It is a difficult word, yeah. You can use more words if you want.
Yeah, it's so difficult to choose 3. I think it's very shaping. Like shaping, I would say, like in terms of your character, and the skills that you learn and the life lessons. You just become much more prepared for the real world. So shaping, I would say extremely fun. I think, being in a team environment, going through the same stuff as the guys around you, having those guys to rely on, and just playing team golf is just extremely fun. You go to some amazing places. Being in a social life and in college in America is just an amazing experience. And another word, would be I was doing so well up until this point as well.
Oh, yeah, you did it. It's all good. Don't worry. 2 words will do us. It's all right.
Two's good. Yeah.
Yeah, two's good. I mean, you've given us loads of good stuff in there. You spoke really well. Loads of good information. Loads of good advice. Insight. You were honest, about some tough times as well, which I think is going to be really useful for people and athletes looking at this in the future. So just to wrap up, really appreciate you giving up your time. It's great to catch up with you. I found it really interesting just to hear your story around this journey and how you dealt with it, and actually really positive to hear how much you enjoyed it and how much you benefited from the experience and how it's hold you in good stead at the moment as well.
Absolutely.
So you have plenty of great stuff in there which I'm sure will be looked at, and I'll send this on to the guys at Sport Scotland, and I'm sure they'll pick out some really good snippets and stuff that can be really useful for the guys going forward. So thanks a lot for your time, Sandy.
Of course, yeah, thanks, Stephen.
We'll stay in touch and we'll catch up soon.
Brilliant. Well, Thanks again. Yeah, happy to help.
Thanks a lot. Bye now.
Cheers now. Thanks, Stephen. Bye.